September 14th, 2022. I'd like to welcome all members of council. Councillor Duran may be joining us online, and we have Linda from Tech Services with us. We have members of the public. We have our acting deputy CAO. What's their title today, JP? Sorry to know. And JP DeRosier. And we have Colin from the Journal Pioneer, I understand, is online, and members of the public. So we'll turn it over at this point to the chair of the planning board, Councillor Brian McFeely. The floor is yours, sir.
I thank you, sir, and we will call the September 14th planning board meeting to order. The agenda has been circulated, so we would ask for a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Ramsey, seconded by Councillor Adams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Hearing no dissension, the motion is carried. We have two items on the agenda today, and just to preface, moving into item number 3 there, just to let people know that they're present here, as well as those that are online, that the voting members of planning board are Councillor Ramsey, Councillor Adams, and the mayor. And myself as chair. If there was a tie, well, it won't be a tie with 3, so I don't have to worry about that. The council is always invited and welcome and encouraged to participate in the discussion, so we look forward to that. So we will move directly into item number 3 on the agenda, 641 Wilmot Lane, discretionary use and major site development. Site plan approval. So the supporting explanation, the purpose of the application is to allow a townhouse 4-unit as a discretionary use in the medium density residential R3 zone. A discretionary use requires council approval. Townhouse means a building that is divided into 3 or more vertically adjacent dwelling units separated by a vertical concrete or masonry firewall, with each unit being constructed directly on grade. Townhouses require individual public utilities and street frontage for each dwelling unit and can be further subdivided as per section 8.15. Background: an application was received from Doug Crosman for 641 Wilmot Lane, PID number 1139757, to allow a townhouse as a discretionary use in the medium density residential R3 zone. The applicant is proposing to build a townhouse 4 units on the property that is currently on approved vacant building lot. And there's a map there showing the subject property. Report: under section 5.7 of the zoning bylaw, when planning board reviews a discretionary use, it has to consider the following general criteria as applicable. A, conformity with all requirements of this bylaw. Staff comment: the application conforms to the zoning bylaw as the use townhouses 4 units is permitted as a discretionary use in the R3 zone, subject to council's approval. B, conformity with the official plan. Staff comment: the discretionary use conforms to the official plan. C, suitability of the site for the proposed development. Staff comment: this site is suitable for this development, as the applicant is utilizing an approved vacant lot. There is sufficient on-site parking for the proposed discretionary use. D, the compatibility of the proposed development with surrounding land uses, including both existing and projected uses. Staff comment: the property is zoned medium density R3. The existing R3 zone allows up to 2 units as of right. The surrounding land uses and proposed land uses are a mix of single-family residential R1, low-density mixed residential R2, medium-density residential R3, high-density residential and service commercial C2. The proposed development is compatible with the existing and projected surrounding land uses. And again, there is a map there showing the subject property as well as the residences of the various comments that were received in the process. E, any comments from residents or other interested persons. A public meeting was held on September 1st, 2022. The public meeting notice was advertised in the August 20th edition of the Guardian. 38 letters were mailed to 27 property owners. Staff comment: the development officer received a call on August 22nd from Ken Allen, 637 Water Street East. Mr. Allen asked if there was a concept plan of the development and the elevation drawings of the building. He was advised the concept plan would be presented at the public meeting, and elevation drawings of the building are not required until a building permit has been submitted. A call was also received on August 24th from Roy Eustace, 47 Clow Court. Mr. Eustace requested verification on the number of lots being considered for the discretionary use. The development officer received an email on August 31st from Winnie and Wayne Moores, 636 Wilmot Lane. Ms. Moores requested the plan of the development and asked about further development on Wilmot Lane. The development officer emailed a copy of the concept plan and indicated currently there are no other applications for further development on Wilmot Lane. The emails are attached to this report. The applicant, property owner Doug Crosman, 29 Lawrence Road, Nova Scotia, spoke at the public meeting, providing an overview of his intent for the development and the reasoning for the discretionary use application. Darrell Inman, 635 Wilmot Lane, raised concerns about the additional traffic as a result of this development and asked why this lot wasn't developed as part of the Clow Court development, Bishop's Landing. Ken Allen, 637 Water Street East, spoke at the public meeting and raised concerns of traffic, pedestrian safety, and adequacy of city services. He also noted the city crew had to do some type of work on Wilmot Lane a few times. Winnie Moores of 636 Wilmot Lane also raised traffic concerns, as well as potential impact on taxes as a result of this development, and should Wilmot Lane be widened, how much land would be required from neighbors abutting Wilmot Lane. Jenica Resurrection, 637 Wilmot Lane, raised concerns regarding the additional traffic, lack of street lighting, and would this development impact the tree line between her property and the subject property. The relative concerns raised by the public and by council have been addressed throughout this report. F, adequacy of the existing water, sewer, road, stormwater, and electrical services, city parking and parklands for accommodating the development and any other projected infrastructure requirements. Staff comment: the existing water, sewer, road, stormwater, and electrical services can accommodate this discretionary use. Wilmot Lane is currently 3.6 meters, 12 feet wide. Asphalt surface with a 5.5 meter, 18-foot wide right-of-way, and can accommodate the additional traffic as a result of the discretionary use for 4 units. Should the city consider widening Wilmot Lane, staff would recommend the asphalt street be widened to 6.1 meters, 20 feet width, with an 8-meter right-of-way. Staff estimate the street widening costs to be approximately $40,000, street work only. The widening would require the city to acquire approximately 1 meter on the east side of Wilmot Lane and 1.5 meters on the west side of Wilmot Lane from the properties abutting Wilmot Lane. City Municipal Works records indicate there was one sewer service called to Wilmot Lane in December 2019. Staff are not concerned with the adequacy of the sewer main on Wilmot Lane. City parking or parkland are not required for this development. The proposed development meets the parking requirements, 1 parking space per unit for a total of 4 spaces. G, impact of the development on pedestrian vehicular access and safety and on public safety generally. Staff comment: the applicant will be required to provide an emergency turnaround to allow vehicles to turn around at the end of Wilmot Lane. The proposed turnaround will not meet city standards due to the surrounding properties being established. The proposed turnaround will improve the current situation, as currently vehicles are forced to back out onto Water Street East or turn the private driveway. There is a 3-meter pedestrian walkway at the end of Wilmot Lane that connects to Cloak Court. A new power pole will be installed near the proposed turnaround to service this development. A street light can be installed on the new power pole to increase pedestrian safety. H, compatibility of the development with environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. Staff comment, the development is compatible with environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. I, impact on city finances and budget. Staff comment, Wilmot Lane will have to be extended to accommodate this development. As per the subdivision site development bylaw, the applicant will be required to apply for a major development site plan approval as there is a street extension required. The applicant is requesting a cost share of a portion, 10 meters of Wilmot Lane extension, as this portion of the roadway should have been extended to the south property line of the subject property when Wilmot Lane was established. The applicant will be responsible for the remaining 28 meters of extension with an emergency turnaround. Should an application for a major development site plan approval request public funding, Council must approve the funding prior to staff approving preliminary site plan approval. Staff have determined the approximate cost of a 10-meter portion of Wilmot Lane extension to be $8,400. The applicant will be required to provide the contractor's costing for the street extension should the contractor costing for the 10-meter portion be lower than $8,400. The city would pay the contractor's costing amount. And there's a map showing the contractor's 28 meters and the other 10 meters in the blue. J, other matters as specified by this bylaw. Staff comment, a major development site plan approval is required as noted in section I, and an applicant required to obtain, a building permit to construct the townhouses. Other matters as considered relevant. Staff comment, prior to amalgamation, Wilmot Lane was a public street maintained by the province. Staff confirmed via aerial photography the street existed prior to 1958. The subject property was part of a larger parcel of land, parcel B1. In 2008, the Cloak Court Murphy Street developer, Beaver Brook Developments / Bishop Landing, was comprised of 2 parcels, parcel A and parcel B1 in the map. You can see that in the map below. Beaver Brook Development originally presented a subdivision layout which connected Cloak Court to Wilmot Lane. City staff reviewed the layout and determined Wilmot Lane could not accommodate the possibility of 64 units accessing Wilmot Lane due to the existing asphalt width of 3.4 meters, 12 feet. The developer revised the layout and proposed to give the subject property 641 Wilmot Lane to the city in lieu of parkland. The city determined the land wasn't required, as there was ample parkland in the area. The developer paid the city a monetary parkland contribution, and the city approved the subject property as an approved lot with access onto Wilmot Lane. The lot was zoned CDA, number of units not to exceed 4, subject to council approval. The lot was designated as medium density, R3, as a result of the 2018 zoning bylaw review, as the proposed use was 4 units subject to council approval. That thus it was fitting to a R3 zone. There is 1 lot being considered for a discretionary use. If the discretionary use for a 4-unit townhouse is approved, the property owner can apply to subdivide the townhouse into 4 individually owned properties. The applicant has indicated that development should not impact the tree line along the south boundary line, other than some minor trimming for aesthetics. This development should not impact taxes on properties other than the property being developed. A discretionary use is valid for 12 months. If the property is conveyed to another party, the discretionary use is as well. The discretionary use approval is associated with the property. So, staff review. The staff City staff support the application for a discretionary use to allow a townhouse 4 units in the medium-density R3 zone. As per section 5.10, subsection B3 of the zoning bylaw, the planning board shall make recommendation to council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward to council for a final decision. So the planning board recommendation, the application received from Doug Crosman for 641 Wilmot Lane, PID number 1139757, be allowed to allow a townhouse 4-unit max as a discretionary use in the medium-density residential R3 zone be recommended to be approved by council. The request for cost share of the Wilmot Lane extension up to $8,400 be recommended to be approved by council. So if I can get a mover and a seconder for that recommendation, then we will open the floor for discussion. Moved by Councillor Ramsey, seconded by Councillor Adams. The floor is open. Councillor Snow.
Thank you, and thanks to Linda and staff for bringing back the information. I guess my only concern has been from the start of this and continues to be the width of the lane. So the average car is roughly 6 feet wide and the lane is 12 feet wide. I think it would be irresponsible of us as a city to allow the development to go ahead without making the proper improvements. We wouldn't allow, and I know the number of units were significantly more, but we wouldn't allow the previous 64 unit development to go ahead because of the width of the lane. Although the number of units, again, are significantly less, I don't think it changes the fact that lane needs to be upgraded. So I would, if we were gonna go ahead, I would hope that as a municipality, we would invest in that lane to make sure that it's wide enough for emergency vehicles, et cetera, to service it. Yeah, so that's.
I was remiss here. I should have read into the record here the email that was received, so I'll read that in and then.
Go ahead.
Turn it over to Councillor McDougall. So this was an email that was received on August 31st from Winnie Moore to Linda Stevenson. It's, good morning, Linda. We have arrived home yesterday from vacation and received the letter of the proposed application. We would like the property overview of the exact location of the application and if there will be plans, space for future development to this or any other property. Also, have there been any other access options looked at or denied previously to the application to access to Wilmot? I expect a quick response to this email, seeing that the meeting is tomorrow evening, leaving us little time to prepare. Regards, Winnie and Wayne Moore, and I know that was responded to in a timely manner, and it was referenced in the report. So we now have that into the public record. So, Councillor McDougall, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Councillor McFeely. I apologize, I wasn't at the public meeting, and but I read all the reports. My concern is basically similar to Councillor Snow's. We have, and I know when Councillor McFeely was out of province, I got a call from some residents on that Wilmot Lane about the garbage not being picked up because of the width of the street and the trees that were there. Now I know that they went and cleared the trees. My big concern is the width of the street, the possibility to the left side of the street is zoned R4. So if we allow this to go ahead without really a commitment to widen that street, and then something comes in, an application comes in for the R4 on the other side. Do you know how many units we could have in that R4, Linda? Could you?
No, I'm not familiar with the size of the parcel.
Yeah, it's,
It's based on land use?
yeah, it looks a bigger lot or a very similar square footage as they have on the other one that's being applied. But that's a concern. The other concern I have, and I have no problem with it, is if staff are recommending that we pay up to $8,400 to extend the street, have we done that for other developers? And if we did, that's fine. If we haven't, then are we setting a precedent? Is this gonna open up a floodgate? And the other part of it is, are we allowing to be this extended without widening up the street? So I guess I had
Yeah,
a mouthful of concerns there.
yeah,
Am I against development? No, but we can't do it at any cost.
But
Thanks.
that's a valid question. Does the 8,400 include the widening of the street? Or is that,
Yes, and the 8,400, if somebody else, if we've done this for somebody else, then,
Linda,
So back when Beaver Brook Developments did this development, the city did approve this lot to be developed up to 4 units at that point in time, based on the width of the lane now, and staff also felt that the 4 units, the existing width of the lane could accommodate the 4 more units at this point in time. No more than that, but they could accommodate this 4. The $8,400 covers the cost of the extension. So I guess just to answer Councillor McDougall's question, yes, we have done this before. This was, I'll say, relatively typical in the former municipalities of Wilmot, Sherbrooke, and St. Helens, where the roads were not built to the extent of the last lot. They were just left to service perhaps up to a driveway on that lot. And so we feel that it shouldn't be the developer's responsibility to extend that road at least to their boundary. So in this case,
but in a lot of cases, we had that conversation with the developers, and I thought that there was, in some cases, I'm pretty sure that the developer had to pay that extension into the next subdivision. Because we always, when you develop a property, if there's a right-of-way like this has been, but this was a provincial thing before, I understand that, but if it was a subdivision leading to another property, I always thought that they had to because I believe there's a case out in Wilmot where the property between the lots, like if the the right-of-way into the next property, right? I think where the other part of it is up on Mountain, where we do Mountain. I think there was something up there too. I'm just saying that we did it for everybody. What?
I think we did contribute to the one on that.
we did contribute to the mountain.
Okay, all right. Anyway, if it's a common practice, I'm okay with it.
But I think the one on Mountain, the road was the adequate width,
Yeah,
right? It
Yeah.
wasn't that,
Right.
but we
like-
still paved it.
Yeah.
Your worship.
Thank you.
And Councillor Rance.
I think
Yeah, I
Carrie
just-
has it right
Oh,
on
I'm
for
sorry.
me. It's okay. Is that okay?
Okay?
you can go, your worship. You
Oh,
can go.
okay. I'm kind of like Councillor Dougal, I got 3 or 4 things, I'm just kind of wondering here. The map here looks like you got 4 units, but 4 buildings. Are we talking about 1 building with 4 units? Or?
it's one building that can be further subdivided, similar to the units that are up on McEwen Road by the new Foxland
So
Court.
this request is for 1 building.
It's one building, yeah.
4 units.
Okay, I'm just wondering, and whether it makes any difference or not, does this Mr. Crosman own the land, or is he gonna buy it if he gets the approval for this? Do we know the ownership of the land?
He currently owns the property.
Oh, he does, okay. And the reason that it wasn't extended from the Clove area was because of the street was too narrow? Or did the water and sewer situation come in that wouldn't handle it?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Well, you had mentioned earlier, and maybe the answer was in one of those reports there, but it wasn't, they didn't build in that area from the Bishop's Landing area. Was that because of the street being too narrow, or because the water and sewer system may not have been able to handle it, or whatever?
So this lot was included in their development, so it was, I'll say, an odd piece. If I look at the map here,
Yeah.
you see how it was just this little added extra. So they couldn't make the layout work. They did propose initially, we did go back through files and found where they requested Clow Court to actually exit out onto Wilmot Lane.
Right.
But there was 64 units proposed, and staff weren't prepared to allow it to go onto that lane with that many vehicles or units that could be there. So they revised their layout, came back to the city and said, well, we'll give you this piece as parkland. The city reviewed that and determined that there was ample parkland in the area. So council took a monetary parkland contribution, and this lot was approved and was allowed up to 4 units. So it was zoned CDA prior to 2018 review. And what a CDA is basically they have to come in with a plan, and you get a plan approved on a case-by-case basis. So it's somewhat similar to discretionary use, so that's why we put it in with the R3 zone.
And my final point is, and I think it was mentioned in probably the opinion of council, but I'm not 100% sure on that, but the concerns in regards to the width of the street and the garbage truck removal, if there's 4 more houses there, it's going to, I'm not saying that there'll be more coming more often, but there'll be, the width of the street is an issue here, and maybe there's a way of working around that if council decides to go ahead with this.
Yeah, and again, currently there's no turnaround. This development will at least allow for a turnaround.
That's all I have this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm not sure who's next here.
Carrie.
I'm being
Thank-
accused of ignoring council.
It's all right. Okay, I'm just reading on this. The lane is still the 12 feet, correct? Like that's about the approximate. And that's what it was when it was denied in 2008. So there's been no widening done to it.
I'm not sure in 2008.
Well, it says like in 2008 when like that, the Beaver Brook developments, Bishop's Landing, when all that happened, that was part of the worry, was that it could not accommodate the possibility of 64 due to the existing asphalt width of 12 feet. Plus but I know there was 64 units, so it was much bigger, but it hasn't widened any since then. And when you say extended, that's not like it's extended in, it's not extended, it's, right, okay. And yeah, and just back to, I just wanted just those clarified for myself and anybody who might be watching. And I, like Councillor Bruce said, there is one, at least in my area, that was an amalgamated area that's probably going to be the same type of thing. So it's, yeah, they're going to have to be looked at either all together or one by one as they come up. But what we do for one, we sort of have to make precedent and do for them all. So, okay, thank you.
Councillor Ramsey, then Councillor Snow, and then the Mayor.
You got something else, Councillor Snow? Okay. Well, I am really concerned just like about the road, about the widening of the road, how are residents going to feel because one of the questions was, how much property are we going to have to take from residents or use of residents' property to widen the road? And apparently it's 1 meter on the east, Kathy, and 1.5 on the west, right? I think, or Kathy. Kathy's your sister. I'm sorry, Linda.
That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right, okay. And so that's a concern. And I know that was a question of some of the residents, and that's certainly worthwhile having a conversation about. I would really like to see the road widened as a counselor. I do agree with Councillor Snow and everybody else that, you know, with the amount of vehicles that would be going in and out. I think with 4 units, it's not going to hurt the traffic issue that much, but I think with cars coming and going, as far as children playing, and you know, there's always children in these areas, and but I think if the street was widened and it was made safe, that would be something that would really be important to me. And so, if I read this correctly, Linda, it's $8,400 to extend the street, and then $40,000 it would cost the city to widen the street. Am I?
That's correct.
Okay, so we would be looking at whatever, like about $50,000 to make sure that everybody was safe out there, and that everybody was happy. You know, the residents that are there, and I think that was their main concern. Sort of was the traffic on that, and the emergency vehicles going in, and the garbage trucks, and you know, all of those things. And like you said, Linda, they would then at least have a turnaround, because that's going to be part of the contract, I think, with the gentleman. But anyway, so those are certainly my concerns, and that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Snow.
Yeah, I just one more time on clarity, and I know we keep going back to the same thing, but that new piece that is being put in, the extension, will only be the width of the existing road, so we're not putting it to, I'm just thinking if we had any developer come in and want to put a road in, we would require them to put it to
City standard.
what is standard. So I don't know why we wouldn't be doing that with this development, knowing or hoping from listening to council that it should eventually be upgraded and put to a standard size road. So I guess that's, I don't know if that's a question or just a statement, but I was.
Yeah, I think that's, again, the 10-meter extension was, that's what basically the ask was, to extend the existing road. And then in the public meeting, then council had asked us to come up with a budget number that would allow us to widen it. We did ask this developer, initially when he proposed the right-of-way, we asked him for an additional 1 meter, so we didn't have to get that later.
Later on, okay,
Yeah.
perfect, thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to just be on record. I know some of the points have already been made, but on the covering the cost of the extension, the 8,400, I'm just looking on page 5, section K, the first sentence, Linda. The staff comment is, prior to amalgamation, Wilmot Lane was a public street maintained by the province. Staff confirmed via aerial photography the street existed prior to 1958. So I guess what I'm wondering, with all of the talking and concerns about widening the road, who's going to bear the cost? There certainly will be more people, young school children, seniors, the turnaround vehicles, and again, my concern is around emergency response, snow removal, storm weather, those kinds of things. Would there be any fact, since it was in 1958, would the province bear some of that responsibility if we have to do that road? Like cost sharing, because it is designated there that in prior to 1958 that it was considered maintained by the province.
So whatever the province maintained prior to 1995 is now our responsibility.
Yeah.
Because of amalgamation? Okay, so my second point then is just what everybody else is saying. If we enter into that kind of a situation where there are other streets or developments or work for widening, then again, is that something that we're going to have to change in our policies?
So there are a number of these throughout the city, and a number of these that council has already contributed to. These are situations that, for example, in this case, it's most likely that this person's driveway, if you can just see on the sketch here, this driveway, they probably just paved it after the driveway. In our current bylaw, you have to pave it to the end of your lot, so that we don't end up with any more of these little stubs that fall back on the city then to make up for the shortfall.
So I'll just let it stand for the record that I do agree with council that we really need to look at that as far as the widening area, should it come to council.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We have Councillor McDougall, then your worship.
Just one final comment. Sorry. Did you say the width of the cul-de-sac, we had a problem with that? It wasn't large enough?
This entire layout is, I'll say, because the area is already established,
Right.
it is what it was, basically, that we took over, but we can't meet any of the standards here without taking a larger amount of land from all the neighbors.
But,
Like, our required right-of-way is 15 meters, and
Right, I
we're
know.
not gonna be able to
And-
attain that. So we are trying to work the best. This is a compromise for an
Right.
emergency turnaround that will work and accommodate snow removal equipment, garbage, emergency vehicles, that type of thing.
it will accommodate that?
It will accommodate those, yeah.
But we still only have 12 feet wide. No, the cul-de-sac is one thing, but the street is only 12 feet wide. Now,
That's correct.
right, yeah.
No. The recommendation is that it's going to 20, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So my other concern, and I raised it before, is if that R4 lot on the opposite side of the street is developed, we're pouring, I don't know how many families into that street, so.
And when they came to time to develop that R4, that's something we'd have to look at. We definitely would recommend, I would feel that the staff was gonna recommend the street would have to be widened, because we're
Yeah,
probably talking 12 more units, or?
that's right, and that's
16
my
more
real
units.
concern right there, is, okay, thank you.
Your worship.
Well, I'll sum up with this, but that's sort of my thoughts as well. That R4 across the street, if somebody bought it when, 10 years ago, or whenever they did, they probably bought it knowing they could develop, say, for conversational purposes, 8 units. But if the land is expropriated from that to widen the street, does that cut his or her development down to 6 or 5? I don't know the size of it, what it would handle. And also, just a couple other things here, and then you can answer thereafter. Where would the entrance or the exit be for that, where is it, the property across the street? If that developed, that R4? So it would be onto that street too?
Beyond the Wilmot Lane.
So it may be feasible or wiser for the city, if they're gonna do it, to do it regular width, because that may attract the development there versus not having it developed, and because this community is crying for housing right now. We're the same with most municipalities in Atlantic Canada. So that, and I was just wondering, that you had mentioned earlier, and maybe you did, what was approved in 2008, was that approved by resolution or just approved by staff, that they could build 4 or 8 units in that when Bishop's Landing was developing?
That
2 or
would've-
3 things in there, sorry.
Sorry, that was, it was all one subdivision,
Right,
and again, they wanted to try to utilize this somehow, this piece of land.
right.
So we approved that as a lot off of, the city did, and it would have been approved, we would have had to have a preliminary approval for that subdivision at the time. So it was approved as a CDA plan. Because at the time, we didn't have a lot of town housing going in or anything like that, so it was relatively new, so it was under that zone. But we did, this is an approved lot currently. So somebody can build 2 units on that as of right today.
But taking into consideration the width of the streets as well?
That's taken in, that's as of right now, without doing anything to the street, that person can build 2 units there as of right.
We still have to extend the street.
Still have to extend the street.
So do we know who owns that R4 land across the street?
I believe there's some connection
I'm
with
not sure it makes
this.
any difference, but I'm just wondering, is it somebody local, or is it a developer in the works, or not?
I believe it's connected with the Century 21 properties.
So when,
It's, this is where the Century 21 office is located,
Yeah.
here on Water Street East.
So
And
could
this-
there be an exit, if it gets developed, an exit through there somewhere?
But with any development, we have to do a site plan approval.
Right, I understand that.
And we would, make that decision at that time. I think what came out of the public meeting, there's two issues. There's discretionary use, to allow the 4 units as the road sits now, with the city doing a cost share to build that small extension that's, I'll say, outside his property. City's responsibility, if we want to call it that. And then the other matter was, council said, when we're looking at this, should we look at widening the road as well? If we're going to add that extension, should we look at that? So that's why we did the costing on the,
When that land was purchased by Mr. Crosman, and for sure, this is my last question, was he of the understanding that it would be for 2 units or 4 units? Do we know?
it was approved as an R3, so he knew it was an R3 lot for 2 units, and that he could put the 2 units on it. We would still be coming to
Okay.
council and asking them to extend this road anyhow, even if he had the 2 units.
yeah. So Linda, just for clarity for people that might be watching or present, CDA stands for,
Comprehensive Development Area.
yeah,
And it was, like I say, it's a case-by-case basis.
yeah.
At the time, we didn't have town housing, we didn't have row housing in our zoning, so this basically allowed for you to come in with a concept of something that was unique.
So, planning board, I don't see any other lights. We have a recommendation in front of us. It's complicated, I guess, a little bit with the kind of the horse of the cart here. The recommendation is that we recommend the council approval, but there's also the concern about the width of the street. So how we deal with that, the street and the width of the street and all that stuff would probably have to be in next year's budget. We don't have money in this year's budget for it, probably.
Could the recommendation include some stipulations? Or
Or a commitment to widening the street?
I'm like you, I guess this is new for us, so
Yeah.
we're trying to sort it out here. The recommendation would be for full council to vote on this at the monthly meeting.
Yes, for full council to vote on it at the monthly meeting, but should the recommendation also include the widening of the street for $40,000?
That could be in the resolution, I suppose.
Well, there's another issue. So, I mean, we probably don't even need to put the amount in, just that the widening of the street, but then we're spending next year's money there too, so.
Can I just ask a question? Why wouldn't we be close if they just told us it was $40,000? Like, so that just throws me for a loop. What's that mean, we're not even close?
I don't think we're gonna be closed by,
Staff just said we were, so I'm just wondering what that's all,
Yeah.
Bruce. I mean,
so,
I just don't understand that. If staff are saying it would cost us $40,000 and we'd need to put $58,000 in our budget for next year for that street,
I
why?
guess,
That's all.
yeah, I don't know if we need to really get into the amount. I think the principle here is, are we prepared to recommend approval for this
Well, if it was,
without the commitment to widening the street?
no. But if it was $200,000, then we'd think again. But I guess the money does matter, like the amount does matter to me as far as how much, so if it's $58,000, that's one thing. If it's $258,000, that's another thing.
But we
So-
don't know the amount until we have.
But how
until
far are we
can
off?
get
Maybe we could ask Linda.
But the thing is, and I want to just, what you said, Councilor Bruce, and the reason I nodded my head is I agreed, is because anything that we've sent out to tender has been at least double. So, as to what was budgeted. So if I'm saying 40,000 and I put something out to tender, chances are it's going to come back as 80 because of cost increases and because people don't have the time and the laborers to do the work.
Yeah.
So that's why I think I thought that's what you were trying to say,
Yeah.
that it's likely going to come back more because there has been one thing that hasn't come
And
back.
I agree with that,
Yeah.
but that's before we were in this world. Now I think when they do their planning, I would hope that staff would take into consideration that there's inflation and that there's a whole lot of things that are going to cost a lot more. So that's, and maybe Linda could answer.
Yeah,
I'll tell
I'm
you
just-
why I said that.
Okay. Let Linda answer maybe.
Yeah, okay.
I can confirm this, but I believe this was based on the prices we got from this year, which would be
Yeah.
the actual contractor prices.
So, you know, whether it's 40,000, it's not going to be 200 and some thousand, it's going to be somewhere in that ballpark, so I don't think we need to spend a lot of time.
No, but I just wanted to clarify why I said that. If we have a developer come into this city and they want to do something, they have to do it to the city specs, curbing, widening, curbing, and all that. So if we're going to be widening that street and curbing, $40,000 is not going to get you halfway across the lot. That's my point.
So I guess it's Deputy Mayor.
And I'll just make a point here, in the absence of Director Kristen, who is the Chief Financial Officer, there's definitely planning that takes place, and streets and ditches, all of those things are looked at. So I don't think it's really fair that she's not here to know what we're discussing. So that if it does move forward on a cost, that's going to be borne in the incoming budget. So I think she needs to be aware of what we're talking about.
She will probably be here when it goes to council, though.
Should we take into consideration that if this was to go ahead, if this other development across the street was to go ahead now because the street was widened, the additional revenue from that development, is that part of the thoughts here among councillors, that if it doesn't go ahead, the cost, that if it doesn't go ahead?
Okay,
Thank
I'll
you.
answer that. I really wasn't considering that, Your Worship. But what I am considering right now, in all honesty, are the concerns that the residents have, and the road not being widened, and the fact that we just are so in such bad shape regarding housing. And so I'm back and forth and trying to help these folks, be comfortable with what the decision is, and also realizing, the difficulties we're having right now with housing. So I wasn't really thinking about that other development, but anyway,
Yeah.
that's my thought.
Yeah, and I'm kind of on the same page. I think we need to focus on the recommendation that's in front of us. I guess the question is Planning Board prepared to recommend it without the recommendation on widening the street? Or do you want to include a recommendation on widening the street as well as part of I think that's the two questions we have here, so.
So as a planning board member, I would recommend that we widen the street if we're going to start allowing
so-
development in there. That's not very fair to the people that are there. So that would be my feeling, and Councillor Adams, you're the other person, and Your Worship, we're the other.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the recommendation here and we need to edit it then to reflect that.
Our editor's sitting behind me here. But I mean, that's only mine, maybe Your Worship and Councillor.
Well, if I could just throw this in, Mr. Chairman, when it comes to the monthly council meeting, if that's the feeling of council, put it as an amendment to the motion, that the street be widened as part of it or whatever, but we could get it to full council on the 20th, I guess it's gonna be now, because the Monday's a holiday. And then if there's an amendment as part of it, if that's appropriate, then we'd have to be sure on planning board amendment, but it will be a resolution for council to vote on.
Yeah, we can do it that way, or we can just add another sentence on to the end of this, that planning board also recommends that
Right.
Wilmot Street be widened.
Yeah.
Wilmot Lane.
Wilmot Lane, excuse
Yeah.
me.
And that's good with me. I would ask Linda if you could check with tech services what the requirement is. If we're just extending that lane And what are we doing? Are we ditching it? Are we curbing it? Because if we're curbing it, it would be from the street in. Like I said, we need to know a really good approximate cost. 40,000, I think, is low. And if I'm wrong, that's great, because
Can I ask a question, just because, I don't know a whole lot about streets and whatever, but I don't think that every street that we widen or that we do is curbed, are they? No, and that's,
Anything new is curbed.
Okay.
In this situation, we have other streets that if we widen them in certain areas, they're not curbed. Sometimes we just have to do that with and this is a perfect example of it. We're not probably gonna curb it. And my guess is, I'd have to confirm this, but I don't believe curbing was included. The water, the sewer, the storm is already there, so there's no cost for that, which there normally would be in a subdivision street when it's being constructed. So this was just to widen it,
right,
just widen the width of the asphalt.
okay, thank you.
Okay, so, oh,
Come to the podium.
just
give
come
your
to the
name.
podium, and I think with the unanimous agreement of planning board, we can allow you to speak, and we need your name and address.
Darrell Inman, 635 Wilmot Lane. Yeah, the widening of the street, your water pipes, when they're coming in the street, they are so far in off of the pavement, right? So if you widen the street, you'd have to put them pipes up to put them in. You'd have to move every one too,
Sorry.
right?
No, we wouldn't move the existing services, we would just be extending the asphalt width.
But you couldn't put the asphalt over your cleaner pipe for your water.
No, valves and catch basins and manholes would be raised to the new asphalt surface level.
Oh, okay.
There's
Thank you.
lots
Thank
of infrastructure under the public streets now that we drive over every day that would have water lines underneath us or sewer lines.
No, the ones that you have in your yards, to what your shut-offs.
Oh, your
That's a possibility that we may have to move them back, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so the recommendation, the edited recommendation that we can consider is the application received from Doug Crosman for 641 Wilmot Lane, PID number 1139757, to allow a townhouse 4-unit max as a discretionary use in the medium-density residential R3 zone, be recommended to be approved by council.
Councillor McFeely, the gentleman got his hand up there.
Oh, okay.
Your Worship and Council, my name is Ken Allen. I'm at the 637 Water Street East, right at the corner of Wilmot and Water Street. And what you're talking about in the way of finances and that in widening, but what you're not taking into consideration, a couple of things. One is you would have to move the telephone and hydro line on, I believe, the west side, because they're all within that 1.5 meters you're talking about. So there's the added expense there. With the loss of the property, it's going to be putting the roadway, the lane, closer to the front doors, almost in some cases maybe to the front door of the existing homes. So has that been taken into consideration as well? And have any of you been on that lane to
Yes.
check this out? And
I certainly have been on it.
I know worship was there
Couple
a
days
day or
ago.
two ago, but just to take a look, have you gotten out also to talk to the people individually? Because there's a lot more to it than what just widening the street.
Can I just, so Linda, like, if we took, so a meter, are we looking at about that? I'm just trying to,
It's a meter and a half, so it'd be 5
well, it's a
feet.
meter on one side, and it's a meter, 1.5 on the other side, correct? So,
Which-
and I'm just, you know, kind of going like that, like I'm just, is that about what we're?
It's 3 feet,
Yeah,
the meter,
so,
roughly 3
yeah,
feet.
Just kind of, just trying to see what that, what, you know, I certainly hear what you're saying, and I'm wondering what the effect that would have on everybody, you know, and,
Because I know on our side, it's the east side, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, we're gonna lose part of our driveway, because it's a circular driveway, we're
Right.
gonna lose, part of that. We do have a couple of other existing buildings there that we would have to move back, but then part of our deck will be
okay.
in that.
And those are some of the
And
things.
I know with the Emmons and further up, it would be coming close to their front doors. The last house on the right going up, it would be, their driveway is just long enough for the vehicle without it being out onto the street.
Okay.
And like I
Yeah,
said, with the.
those,
with the
that's all, that
hydroponic-
all needs to be taken into consideration, I think. Thank you.
'Cause I'm one of the concerned seniors on that location.
I appreciate that. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, sir.
So-
Sorry, Councillor McFeely, I think we have to deal with this recommendation, and if council wants to explore, as this gentleman just pointed out, there's a lot more information to get before we make a
No, I
recommendation
agree,
on
and
widening.
I think I've written an edit to the recommendation that would speak to that and maybe give some direction to council from planning board. So maybe I'll read that into the record, and you can either approve it or not, and it'll allow us to move forward in some way. Okay. So the planning board recommendation, the application received from Doug Crosman for 641 Wilmot Lane, PID number 1139757, to allow a townhouse 4-unit max as a discretionary use in the medium-density residential R3 zone be recommended to be approved by council. The request for cost share of Wilmot Lane extension up to $8,400 be recommended to be approved by council. Planning board also recommends that council explores the implications and costs associated with widening Wilmot Lane.
Implications meaning some.
All those other,
Things we just talked about.
yeah. So that would be the recommendation to planning board to council, then council can vote on it accordingly.
So those answers to the implications and the cost will be provided prior to council vote?
I doubtful that would be ready for Monday night, though.
I just,
Yeah.
from hearing everybody.
So basically, we're still we're approving the initial request for the four units, recommending, or we recommend to council that be approved, and that the city look at the widening and what all the implications are around the widening, is what the recommendation is.
I guess it needs to be said, just from hearing everybody speak, one of the main issues were, can we widen that road? And if we can't widen that road,
Right.
what's
Are
that
we
mean?
prepared,
But I know, I
Yeah.
do realize that there's already units allowed, it boggles my mind, I guess, that we're in this situation, but it's.
So,
To me, it's simply, I know that we have to go through this process and talk about everything, and there's been some very important concerns that have come up, but where I'm feeling a bit uncomfortable is if it comes to us on Monday night and we have to vote on something that we don't have a really definite recommendation on based on some of the information we've heard today. It's hard to make that decision, because I'm sure we want to make an informed decision, and we need that piece of it to make it.
So maybe we should defer it being on the agenda Monday night?
And I was just gonna suggest that, because my understanding, Linda, is if this was approved Monday night without saying anything about the street, it's completely safe. That's what you're saying.
Yep, the report says that the 4 units would be safe as is.
Right.
What goes hand in hand here is the developer applied for the discretionary use and asked for the cost request at the same time, because if we don't do the cost request, the $8,400 to extend it to his property line, I don't know if he'll go through with the development. I can't speak for that, but.
Right.
So that's why those 2 were included in the same recommendation.
Right. So once this is approved, that's fine, and we need the housing and all that. But once this is approved, do we have to, if we approve this on Monday night, if it was on Monday night, it's 28 days or 21 days, and then they could get their building permit? Or can, if you're not satisfied with the answer you got re-widening the street, can you hold off on the building permit?
So if they get approval for this, we would have to be able to issue a building permit, but again, it's still gonna be on conditions of they have to extend the roadway, they gotta build their own, that other roadway yet, so.
Councillor Ramsay?
Okay, and I think this is the end, for me anyway. I think that I think we need to defer it. I think we need to wait and get the answers, my opinion, and then when we have the answers and everybody's in agreement as far as council, I don't. Well, no, I do think that's what we have to do, because I don't think that it's fair. We, like Norma says, or Deputy Mayor, we're not informed about, to make the decision, I don't think so.
So are we?
Here we are.
So are you
Director has
suggesting-
something back there.
Are you suggesting that, just one second, that planning board defer its decision, or planning board recommend the council defer the decision?
Sure, as long as it's deferred, I don't care how.
The street width is going to be a concern from council now, whether there's a development there or not, correct? So my suggestion to council would be to deal with this recommendation as is, and then deal with the road width at a later date. They're 2 separate issues, even though they're combined. There's still residents living on the street with this, with a width that, Linda, I don't want to speak for you, that's not to standard, which needs to be addressed. This development, whether it occurs or not, they're 2 separate issues. So my recommendation would be to deal with what you have in front of you today.
Thank you.
Just, again, this is the second time I said it's my final point, but as the discussion goes on, you think of things. The right-of-way, what is the actual width? Does the city have any right-of-way? If they took 2 feet or 3 feet off of somebody's property, is that what you call expropriation, and do they get paid for that? And a lot of streets, we have right-of-ways so many feet off of the street. So what's the story in this Wilmot Lane?
So Wilmot Lane currently has an 18-foot right-of-way. That's, right now, as of today, that's the width of that right-of-way currently.
What's the paved width right now?
The paved width is 12 feet.
12.
So we have 3 feet on either side of the road that we own currently.
Yeah, that city owns.
Yeah, the city owns.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay,
That's it for me.
what's our wish here, folks? Are we moving forward with the recommendation to council and let full council deal with it on Monday night? Are we, and council can decide to defer it Monday night if they wish?
Is Councillor Duran with us?
Tuesday night, excuse me, Tuesday night?
Do we have Councillor Duran on air?
No,
Okay, so we'll have a full council at the monthly meeting.
at the monthly meeting, and if council decides they don't have enough information and want to defer it,
Yes.
that's valid and probably prudent. Yeah. well, once we kind of come to an agreement here, what we're doing, we can do that. So we just want to go with the original recommendation and just leave the widening of the street out of it until Monday night? And that'll allow us to move forward? And, okay. So the recommendation, I'll read it one more time so people clearly understand what's happening here, is that Planning Board is now going to recommend the council that the application received from Doug Crosman for 641 Wilmot Lane, PID number 1139757, be allowed to allow a townhouse 4-unit max as a discretionary use in a medium-density residential R3 zone, be recommended to be approved by council. The request for cost share of the Wilmot Lane extension up to $8,400 be recommended to be approved by council. So that's the recommendation that will go to council, and then council will debate it on Tuesday night. And if we want to put provisions in there at that time around the widening of the street, and once we understand all the implications, and we can make that decision then, or we can defer it if we don't have enough information on Tuesday night.
Okay, that sounds good, Brian. Are all those concerns written down somewhere, though, so that we have them at our next meeting? Does somebody have those? You have them.
Yeah.
We will, John Paul. Okay.
Yeah.
As long as everything's there that we need for the next meeting.
Okay,
Thank you.
so that motion, the original motion was moved by Councillor Ramsey a long time ago, and Councillor Adams. So all those in favor of the motion and for Planning Board to vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary?
That's to get it to the meeting.
Motion carried. So that will go forward, just for the public's information, on Tuesday night at our council meeting at 6:30 p.m. And we'll continue, if the full council will get involved in the debate at that time.
Maybe if you could have it on the first item on the agenda, or early on the agenda, so the residents
Yeah.
wouldn't have to sit here all night, but that's up to the agenda people. We'd have it-
Okay, so that concludes item number 1 on our agenda this afternoon.
That's right, we have another one.
And we have one more item that we will move into. And it's a recommendation on 356 Maple Avenue, discretionary use application. Supporting explanation, purpose. The purpose of the application is to allow a 3-unit apartment building as a discretionary use in the medium-density residential R3 zone. A discretionary use requires council approval. Apartment means a building containing more than 2 dwelling units. Background, an application was received from 1028001 PEI Inc., represented by James Prophet, for 356 Maple Avenue, PID number 308353, to allow an apartment building up to 4 units as a discretionary use in the medium-density residential R3 zone. The applicant is proposing to convert the existing single-family with a secondary suite into 3 apartments. The home was built in the 1950s. The addition was added in the 1960s, and the secondary suite was added in the 70s. The report, under section 5.7 of the zoning bylaw, when the planning board reviews a discretionary use, it has to consider the following general criteria as applicable. A, conformity with all requirements of this bylaw. Staff comment. This application conforms to the zoning bylaw as the use, apartment building up to 4 units, is permitted as discretionary use in the R3 zone, subject to council's approval. Should council approve the discretionary use for an apartment building 3 units, the applicant will be required to obtain a building permit. Conformity with the official plan. Staff comment. The discretionary use conforms to the official plan. C, suitability of the site for the proposed development. Staff comment. This site is suitable for this development as the applicant is converting an existing single-family home with a secondary suite. There is sufficient on-site parking for the proposed 3-unit apartment building. There is 6 parking spaces available on the site. D, compatibility, excuse me, the compatibility of the proposed development with surrounding land uses, including both existing and projected uses. Staff comment, the property is zoned medium-density residential R3. The existing R3 zone allows 2 units as of right. The surrounding land uses and proposed land uses are mainly R3 with a mix of institutional neighborhood commercial, high-density residential, and the proposed development is compatible with existing land uses. And the map is shown there with the subject property on Maple, as well as showing the residences of people that we received comments from. Any comments from the residents or other interested persons? A public meeting was held on September 1st, 2022. The public meeting notice was advertised in the August 20th edition of The Guardian. 35 letters were mailed to 24 property owners. Staff comment. Staff did receive a phone call from Marcy Laird, 390 Maple Avenue. Ms. Laird was not opposed to discretionary use 3-unit apartments. She wanted to express concern regarding on-street parking, increase in traffic, and if this application is approved, does it set a precedent to allow others in the area to convert their homes as well? Sarah Burgoyne, 336 Maple Avenue, expressed her concerns via an email to Councillor Snow, which is attached. Mrs. Burgoyne asked how many apartments may exist in other single-family dwellings in the area. She also has concerns of winter on-street parking, hydrants in the area, and the plans for renovations additions. Jane Prophet spoke on behalf of the property owner, the applicant, 102801 PEI Inc., providing an overview of the proposed intent for the discretionary use and history of the property, which belonged to his grandparents. Mr. Prophet indicated he has been in contact with the city building officer. He also indicated that there will be 3 units in total, 1 4-bedroom unit in the main house, 1 2-bedroom unit in the existing attached secondary suite, and 1 to 2-bedroom proposed unit in the basement. There is no addition being made to the existing building footprint. The existing attached secondary suite is intended to serve as accommodations for family when visiting, coming home to Summerside. F, adequacy of existing water, sewer, road, stormwater, and electrical services, city parking, parkland for accommodating the development and any other projected infrastructure requirements. Staff comment, the city water, including fire coverage, sewer, storm, and electrical systems are adequate for this discretionary use development. Parking requirements for this development is 1 parking space for each dwelling unit. A total of 3 parking spaces is required. There is currently 6 on-site parking spaces. Mr. Prophet indicated they have parked as many as 8 in the existing driveway during family gatherings. The city's policy on winter parking is no parking on streets and properties between November 1st and April 20th between 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. G, impact from the development of pedestrian vehicular access and safety and on public safety generally. Staff comment, this development will have minimal impact on pedestrian vehicular access as the number of units is increasing by 1 unit. The property has an existing access on Maple Avenue, and there is an existing sidewalk on the north side of Maple Avenue for pedestrian safety. H, compatibility of development with environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. Staff comment, the development is compatible with environmental, scenic, and heritage resources. The property is not a designated property under heritage, our heritage bylaw SS-20. The property is not located within the heritage district. I, impacts of the city finances and budget. Staff comment, the development does not impact city finance or budgets. J, other matters as specified in this bylaw. Staff comment, discretionary uses are approved on a case-by-case basis, subject to meeting the applicable criteria of section 5.7 of the zoning bylaw, subject to council approval. In November 2021, council approved for a similar discretionary use to allow a single-family dwelling to be converted to a 4-unit apartment building at 92 Summer Street. K, other matters is considered relevant. Staff comment, the applicant will be subject to a building permit regarding setting precedent. Each discretionary use application requires public notification. Each application is considered by council based on the criteria under section 5.7 of the zoning bylaw. All discretionary uses are subject to council approval. Staff confirm there have been no discretionary uses for 3 units or more approved within 400 meters of the property since 2004, based on city records. There may be other single-family dwellings in the area with apartments within the single-family dwelling, as 2 units were permitted in the R1 zone of the town of Summerside zoning prior to 1995. Staff review. City staff support the application for discretionary use to allow 3-unit apartment building in a medium-density residential R3 zone. As per section 5.10, subsection B3 of the zoning bylaw, the planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward to council for final decision. So the planning board recommendation, just before we get to that, I should reference the email that came from Sarah Burgoyne to Councillor Corey Snow. I'm not going to read that into the record. I think Councillor Snow already read it into the record, so there's no need to read it in twice. So we will move to the planning board recommendation. The application received from 102801 PEI Inc. is represented by James Prophet for 356 Maple Avenue, PID number 308353, to allow an apartment building 3 units of discretionary use in the medium-density residential R3 zone, be recommended to be approved by council. And if I could have a mover and a seconder from planning board, moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Ramsey. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Just a brief comment. We referenced the email I received following the meeting that night. Sarah also reached out to me and just wanted to thank myself, council, and staff for, and the developer for answering the questions. She felt almost all the questions were answered that night.
Good.
And she just thanked us, and again, she wasn't against the development, just wanted to make sure it fit within the neighborhood, so I just thought it was important to mention that.
Thank you. Councillor Snow, any other questions or comments? If not, we will call the question. All those, and I don't think I need to read the recommendation again, all those in favor of the recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary? Motion carried. And that, your worship, concludes today's planning board meeting. So I would call for a motion for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Ramsey, seconded by Councillor Adams. So
Thank you.
We are adjourned.
Thank you. We'll just give Brian Harlick a second here to get us disconnected from YouTube.
Carried. It's a special council meeting.
Oh, there is another one? Oh, yeah, sorry. I didn't have that. I just had adjournment here. But anyway, which one is this one for again? Oh, that one, yeah. Okay, we call a special council meeting to order, and we're still on YouTube. So welcome, everybody, the media and general public, and we have Linda Stevenson from Tech Services, and we have our acting, you're still acting Deputy CAO. How's that for a handle? Sure. Okay. And Councillor Duran may be online. Go ahead then. The first item on the agenda is?
We have
The motion?
just a motion.
Go ahead,
I can
Councillor
move ahead.
McFeely.
I'll remain seated closer to the mic, if that's
Okay,
okay,
that's
your
fine,
worship, for the
yeah.
motion, so people can hear me. It's resolution COS 22-112, moved by myself, Councillor McFeely, seconded by Councillor Kerry Adams. Whereas an application for a major subdivision was received from Arsenal Brother Holding to subdivide PID number 72983, consolidation of PID number 72983 and PID number 662676, creating 4 lots, lot 22-1A to 22-1D, a public street and easement, B and C, for a temporary cul-de-sac and remainder of PID number 7293, consolidation of PID number 72983 and PID number 662676 is shown on the preliminary survey plan prepared by Locust Limited, drawing number 22088-S02, dated August 22nd, 2022, and that is accompanied on the following page. And whereas in accordance with section 3.6 of the Subdivision Site Development Bylaw, council shall consider the following general criteria as applicable: conformity with all requirements of this bylaw, conformity with the official plan, conformity with the zoning bylaw, the orderly and following nature of the development, physical suitability of the site for the proposed development, including avoidance of natural hazards, undue water runoff, or environmental damage, compatibility of the proposed development with the present and future surrounding patterns of streets, lots, and services, including conformity with any city concept plans, adequacy of the applicant's proposal for traffic circulation, parking, pedestrian access, water supply, sewage disposal, and storm drainage, including an adequacy of the city streets and services to handle increased loads, suitability of parkland provisions, impacts on city finance and budgets, proof of conformity with any applicable provincial legislation and regulations, other matters as considered relevant. Be it resolved that council grant preliminary subdivision approval in accordance with section 8.5 of the Subdivision Site Development Bylaw, the Arsenal Brothers Holding, Inc., to subdivide PID number 72983, consolidation of PID number 72983 and PID 662676, create 4 lots, lots 22-1A to 22-1D, a public street, and easements B and C for temporary cul-de-sac, and the remainder of PID number 72983, consolidation of PID number 72983 and PID number 662676, as shown on preliminary survey plan prepared by Locus Survey Limited, drawing number 22088-S02, dated August 22nd, 2022, subject to the following conditions: that the developer satisfies all municipal and servicing requirements. The developer enters into a subdivision construction agreement with the city. The developer shall satisfy the parkland dedication requirements. The developer pays the outstanding water and sewer lake coming fees in the amount of $20,000 plus HST to the city. And this bears recommendation of the planning board meeting held on September 6, 2022, your worship, and attached is the locus drawing showing the lots in question.
Moved by Councillor McFeely and seconded by Councillor Adams. Any questions on the resolution? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary nay. Carried. So, I believe we've gotten to the end of the agenda. So now we'll start all over again. We'll ask for a motion to adjourn. So moved by Councillor Adams and seconded by Councillor Ramsey. All in favor say aye. And we'll give the other Brian Harlick, second to get us disconnected from YouTube.